I know, right?
It spirals up.
We have been practicing over and over again in bell work. We even did a mini re-teaching unit on it. To multiply polynomials, dun, 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 use the properties of exponents. A power times a power. That's what we're doing. So like on your bell work for basically the whole year, when you've had a problem that says 3x to the fourth times negative 8x squared. This is it. This is the moment. We will use this and be fantastic.
We finally get to figure out what x is.
No.
I just
The mystery of life.
arrow I've ever seen.
Forever.
I'm so bad.
You couldn't
Yeah.
find out if
Sounds
even.
real.
The two rules for a power times a power. Properties of exponents. When you have a power times another power, something with an exponent times something else with an exponent, there are two rules. What are the two rules?
Multiply the coefficients, add the exponents.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Jordan. I really need that support in my life.
No problem.
Multiply the coefficients. Pop quiz. What are coefficients?
The
Numbers in front of the variables.
Numbers in front of variables. Add the exponents. Multiply the coefficients. Add the exponents. Coefficients are numbers in front of the variables, so you multiply the two big whole numbers in front of variables, multiply those, add your exponents. You're done. There are three types of problems we're going to work with today. And really, of those three types, you already know how to do two of them. The first type of multiplying polynomial problem, example number 1. First type of polynomial problem is a monomial. What's a monomial? One term times another monomial. So a one-term problem times a one-term problem, which really, we already know how to do this. A one-term problem times a one-term problem, 4x squared, times 8xy to the fourth.
Whoa.
This is a monomial times a monomial. Some people may say, wait a second, Mrs. Long, isn't that a binomial because you have two things?
No.
But no, it's not, because if it was a binomial, those two things have to have a plus or a minus between them. This is a monomial times a monomial. And a monomial times a monomial, we've already done. Correct. A monomial times a monomial, we already know how to do this. A monomial times a monomial, we're going to multiply the coefficients. What are the coefficients? 4 times 8. 4 times 8 is 32. And we're going to add the exponents. I have a 2. Do I do 2 plus 4?
No, you do 2 plus 1.
2 plus 1.
2 plus
Does
1.
it have to be in standard form?
Yes.
Darn it.
What kind of question is that?
Miss Long, I like the Christmas colors that you're wearing.
Me too.
Nice.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
It's
You're
just
not
green.
wearing Christmas.
But her hair is red.
Oh.
Let her
Orange
live.
than red, but okay.
Y to the fourth.
That's ridiculous.
You should dye your head. I mean, not
My
You
head.
should dye your
My
head.
whole head.
It'll look really good.
You should dye it more red.
Got it.
Julia,
Right on top of that.
Oh my god.
32, x to the third, y to the fourth.
They're cute.
A monomial times a monomial, we already know how to do this. This is from pre-algebra, properties of exponents.
From the back of the
I thought standard form was greatest to least.
Yeah. No, it goes
Alphabetical, then greatest to least.
silly goose.
So Y is never coming before X.
No. That's not the way the alphabet.
I mean, if
That's
you're-
what it's in-
Why are you doing like reverse? Yeah,
Wait a
let's say
minute.
that.
Kalia's on something.
On backwards day in math. Okay.
Oh my
Oh
gosh,
boy.
opposite day.
Not. I shouldn't have said
It's
it.
opposite
Now
day.
it's gonna be on the calendar.
All right, type 2. So type 1 problems, example number 1 is a monomial times a monomial. We already know how to do it.
Is it binomial?
Type 2 is a monomial,
Oh, we were wrong.
one term,
Shut.
times a
Binomial.
polynomial. So it could be a monomial times a binomial. Or it could be a monomial times a trinomial. Or it could be a monomial times a 4-term polynomial or a 10-term polynomial.
Well, there.
Right? We have to remember,
Show your horses.
we use polynomial very specifically. We use polynomial to describe anything with 4 or more terms. But polynomial can be used interchangeably as just a multi-term, so 2, 3, or 4. And again, we've already technically done these problems. 10x squared times 2x minus 7y. We've already done these problems. We've already gained experience with a monomial times a polynomial, whether it's 2 terms binomial, 3 terms trinomial, or a true polynomial more than 4. What do we have to do to this problem? What's our trick? What's our strategy?
Distribute.
Yeah. We just distribute. Meaning I take 10x squared and I distribute it to the 2y, or that's a 2x. And then I go back to that 10x squared, and what do I distribute it to the second time?
-7.
Yeah, negative 7y. The minus belongs to the 7. So 10x squared times the binomial, or the quantity, 2x minus 7y. What's 10x squared times 2x? 20. 10 times 2. 20. X squared times x is x to the third, because 2 plus 1 is 3. What's my next term? Love it. Negative 70. 10 times negative 7 is negative 70.
X2.
X2?
X squared.
Thank you.
I just have trouble with numbers on Mondays, man.
Just on Mondays.
Yeah.
Got it.
I really do. That's okay.
So the solution, the final answer is 20x to the third minus 70x squared y. They are not like terms, so they cannot be combined. We're done. Ooh, sorry. So out of the 3, I feel pretty confident, right?
Yeah.
We know 66% of this. 67%.
Whoa, math.
That's
Did that in my head, guys.
Crazy.
you're wild.
Example 3.
Oh boy.
Any guesses?
It'll be
It's
a
gonna be
polynomial.
monomial, polynomial.
Binomial.
I'm
A binomial is a
Oh
polynomial.
my gosh, we were
God, I
right.
was right.
Good job, Kalia.
Now this is very specific. It is a binomial times a binomial. Now here's the thing about today, what we're learning about binomial times binomial. Let's say your parents sit down at dinner today and they say to you, what did we learn in math class today? And you say, oh, you know what? I learned how to multiply a binomial times a binomial. They're going to say what? Huh? However, if you said, oh, today I learned to FOIL,
They'll totally know.
they'll remember it. They may not remember exactly how to do it, but they will say, oh yes, I remember FOIL, because it's that big of a deal.
They're children of the 80s. It is what it is.
A binomial times a binomial, we use this term FOIL. It's an acronym. All FOIL means is to double distribute. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because a binomial has how many terms? 2. So it's not a monomial, because a monomial, I just take that one term and I multiply it by everything. But a binomial in front means it has 2 terms. So I have to distribute 2 things. I have to double distribute. So here's my example. Here's my problem. 4x minus 8 is my first binomial, times 2x plus 2. I'm going to FOIL. FOIL is an acronym. Do you know what an acronym is?
Yeah.
It's a word that when you take each letter it stands for something.
Yeah.
PEMDAS, SOAR, here at Hawker Grove.
So good, so later.
Those are all that. I think math
Right.
is actually the worst.
Here we go. FOIL.
Math testing.
F stands for first. O stands for outside, or some people say outer.
So what do you suppose I stands for?
Inside.
And if F is first, L is
Linear.
Oh, Jordan.
not linear.
Last.
There's nowhere to distribute if you distribute it linearly.
Whoa, what?
Never mind.
Don't try to, don't.
Just don't wait to Jordan.
We're done. All right, so I'm going to color code for all of you visual people out there.
The only color I have is gray.
Poor Jordan.
You could use a symbol or something.
F. F stands for first, meaning I'm going to do 4x times 2x. Because those are the first terms in each binomial. The first term times the first term. F stands for first. 4x times 2x. The first term of the binomial times the first term of the binomial. What is 4x times 2x?
8x squared.
8x squared. 4 times 2 is 8. X times x is x squared. First. O stands for outside, meaning 4x is on the outside of the problem and plus 2 is on the outside of the problem. On the outside of the problem. 4x times 2. 4x times 2 is 8x. Look, all I did, double distributing, I distributed 4x to both terms, correct? I distributed 4x to both terms, first and outside. I stands for inside, meaning I'm going to now take negative 8 times 2x. Negative 8 times 2x. Negative 8 times 2x is what?
Negative 16x.
Negative 16x. First, outside, inside, last.
What term has it been?
No.
Negative 8.
Negative 8
Or no.
Negative 16.
times 2. And negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. I double distributed. First, outside, inside, last. It's just double distributing. So my answer, my solution, is going to be right here. However,
Can we combine any terms?
Yes.
85 to 90% of the time. Did you just ask that?
No.
Do you think it's only 90%? I guess there are those times when you're gonna have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same.
85 to 90% of the time. Maybe 95% of the time. But I mean, it's a lot. You combine like terms. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, it's your outside and inside. It's your two middles. Sometimes not. This time it is. I have two like terms.
Watch it.
So what's my solution? What's my answer to 4x minus 8 times the quantity 2x plus 2? Binomial times a binomial. What's my final answer? Jaime?
8x squared minus 8x
Perfect. 8x squared.
minus 8x.
These are like terms, so they create negative 8x or minus 8x minus 16. Should you always try to write your answer in scientific notation? Not scientific. Standard notation?
Yes.
Yes.
So if there was y to the fourth power, would it come as 8x squared?
If y to the fourth power was out there, it would go first because it has a larger exponent.
Yeah. This, you said like,
When you put them together, it's alphabetical. So like if it was x squared y and y squared x,
Oh.
x squared would go before y squared.
Okay,
It depends on the exponent value. It depends on alphabetical. It depends on all kinds of stuff.
I got 4 on your page.
Whole nother page.
Oh,
4 practice problems. Here we go.
4. It's like 1 more than 3.
Good math, Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Work them out individually. Work them out as a group. Check with the people around you. Ask questions.
One thing I found as a student your age was to actually like draw those lines for FOIL first, outside, inside, last, like before I got started.
Yes, I will say,
And do that before solving anything, just so that it keeps you on track. That I gotta do x times 4x, then I have to do x times 8, then I have to do negative 3 times 4x, then I have to do negative 3 times positive 8.
there will be a time that this can be done semi-mentally, right? That you can start skipping steps and being less methodical.
But not
For
today.
notes especially, we should write it out, like we should just show it, because if you get home and you don't remember how to do it, and you go back to your notes and there's nothing there that shows you the steps, that's kind of pointless.
I see all the time.
So, especially in notes, showing your work is, mandatory / ideal. When you start out, showing your work is important because it's the first few times that you've done it. You are foiling because it is a binomial times a binomial.
Yeah, so here you want to do, like that's why I sense.
Yeah.
And for some of us, this whole FOIL part doesn't really click in our head. It's also just double distributing. It's taking that first term and multiplying it by the 2 in the other one. And then taking the second term and multiplying it by the 2 in the other. It's double distributing. It follows that pattern. We just gave it a name because people want help with it.
I always thought it looked like a smiley face or I don't know. Didn't they make that? I feel like that used to be a help when we were
Maybe.
12 and 13. Like there was some kind of figure you were supposed to see from looking at it.
So if I'm looking at number 1, you can check along with me. My first terms, x times 4x. X times 4x gives me a product of 4x squared. O, x times 8. X times 8 is 8x. Inside, negative 3 times 4x. Negative 3 times 4x is negative 12x. L, last, negative 3 times 8, which is negative 24. I'm looking for common terms, right? Like terms. I've got 2 of them that can be combined. So my solution, my answer to this binomial times this binomial is 4x squared minus 4x minus 24. Where did minus 4x come from? 8x minus 12x. They're like terms, so they can be combined.
Oh, I was trying to like
now I
simplify it as if it was like a fraction.
Oh.
Oh.
Number 2. Even before I do number 2, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to make an assumption. I'm going to have in my mind, number 2 is going to be a little wonky looking because why?
I don't know. It's not in order?
It's not in order. It's not in standard form, so it's going to be a little out of order, but I can handle it. Here we go. First is 9 times what? 9 times 4x. 9 times 4x is 36x. O stands for outside, so I'm going to do 9 times 1. 9 times 1 is 9. I stands for inside, so that means negative 3 times 4x, which is what? Negative 12x squared. And L stands for last, negative 3 times 1, or negative 3x, sorry, times 1. Negative 3x times 1 is negative 3x. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to look for like terms. Anything? 36x and negative 3x. And the reason they're not in the O and I spot, which is where they typically are, is because this is not written in standard form. So it looks weird. I have to really be aware and focused. So what's my solution to number 2? Negative 12x squared plus 33x, because 36 minus 3 is 33, plus 9.
Number 3 is weird. You don't do anything.
Yeah.
Number 3, first, outside, inside, last. F stands for first. I'm going to take the first term of the first binomial times the first term of the second binomial. Negative 3 times 4. Negative 3x times 4x. Negative 12x squared. I wasn't very creative on all of my multiplication problems. We've got a lot of 12s, a lot of 24s. Outside, negative 3x times 8y. Negative 24xy. Perfect. Now I switch to my second term in the first binomial. 1 times 4x. 1 times 4x is 4x. And last, 1 times 8y is 8y. I'm going to stop. Before I write my solution, I'm going to look for like terms. Are there any like terms? No. So what's my answer?
Minus 24xy plus 4x plus 8y.
Perfect.
Could you have a negative 24xy in front?
No.
Why?
Because this is xx, right? And this is xy. And alphabetically, double x would come before double or xy.
What about positive double plus 4x? Would that go in front?
No, because this is a power of 2, right?
Okay.
Because it has a 1 and a 1, and this is a power of 1 because it only has 1. Good questions. I mean, here's the deal. If you flip-flop them, is it wrong? No, it just makes Mrs. Long think a lot harder when she has to grade it.
So technically it wouldn't be wrong.
I mean, but chances of me accidentally marking it wrong increase.
I'm gonna do my homework all on just
First, 3x squared
You don't want her.
times 8x. 3x squared times 8x. 3x squared times 8x is 24x to the third. Perfect. Outside, 3x squared times negative 2. 3x squared times negative 2 is negative 6x squared. And again, I'm double distributing. I'm taking this term and distributing it once. Now I'm switching to the second term and I'm going to distribute it. 4 times 8x. 4 times 8x is 32x. And 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Is this anything like terms? No, I don't have any like terms in this one either. So my solution is 24x to the third minus 6x squared plus 32x minus 8.